Okay. Okay. Hi to everyone. Hope you're doing good. Me and Dima here. Dima, hello. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a bit sad that we started the stream because I was watching the new video in the beginning, and I was like, yeah, I can watch this for like 15 minutes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it, like presumably maybe next time, if we will ever kind of be totally late, it could really save us. But this time it's fine. We don't want any of us and any of our viewers to wait longer than they need to. So hello to everyone. Please write in the chat right now. I think it's in this side somewhere. Where are you from and what is the time for you? For me and Dima, it's 3 p.m., which is a good time to chat around the new 0.14 release. Yeah, so go straight there and just type anything, basically. You can even send an emoji, it will be fine.
Yeah. Hi all.
Yeah, we have George already.
Nice. By the way, it looks like I've been in the sea, for quite a while. I'm all red and stuff, but I'm not red, and I haven't been in the sea, unfortunately. It just there is like the window here is like creates this red
Yeah,
saturation
it's
here.
really, it looks really
Yeah,
dramatic in a way, very cinematic kind of background right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. Da, da, da,
Yeah.
da. I wonder how can I fix the white balance here. I'm not sure. I guess I will be red. I'm okay.
Yeah. So we have Michael from Poland, right? It's 2
Oh,
p.m.
oh,
Yeah.
nice to see him. He recently really helps around a lot around Novu and the code base and created some really amazing PRs recently. So I'm glad
Nice.
you made the join. I'm trying
Yeah.
to convince him to get a coffee with me, but I'll get to it. Maybe
Sometimes
maybe
it
after
takes
this.
time. Usually, people who don't agree that fast to a coffee eventually really worth the waiting. That's from what
Exactly.
I heard.
This is what I understand as well. So really glad to see you here. I hope I pronounce it right. Is it Michael or Michael? I, yeah.
So I read it as Michael, so I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, probably just being exposed to so many different cultures and you just treat things differently. Well, never mind. Let's just start from what happened in this recent release.
Sure. So we've touched it a bit, in our previous office hours, together with some of the kind of planned things to do, and I'll give maybe the LDR of the main kind of goal around this release. And we've been growing in usage and in types of customers working with us. I think we are at the rate of doubling down the amount of notifications we are sending every given month, which in the beginning is nice, but then like when like the exponential part starts to kick in, it becomes much harder. So we've been focusing a lot around performance optimizations during this cycle, and includes various aspects of Novu. And the first one and the most kind of central piece is extracting the actual processing node of the notifications outside of the API monolith, basically, that was in the beginning with. And we knew it's going to happen one day, one time or the other, and we kind of planned and built the system around it. But basically, since 0.14, the worker service is a separate Docker container that you can, it's not that you can, you must run it independently. And you can also scale it independently. And this is kind of the very good part of it is this. You can scale the actual processing workers depending on the size of your queue, and you can also do it dynamically in cases you have less notifications. And so obviously you can scale it down and then you can scale it up to meet the actual demand. Um, Obviously, you don't have to worry about any of this if you're using our managed service. But if you do use Novu self-hosted, I think this is an incredible kind of progress towards a more scalable system to help support either you on self-hosted or also our managed service really and kind of scale horizontally versus scaling in a much more less cost-effective way, basically, when it's part of the monolith. So this was one big kind of work, and I'm really thankful for the team, and specifically Pavel let it rock from our GitHub. If you might have seen him, it took quite a lot of collaboration between different team members because we kept also working on new features and kind of keep some of our plans ahead while still making this huge migration and refactoring of the platform and kind of keeping it everything managed and contained. It was not an easy task, but in the end, I think we've done an amazing job there, and yeah, we've seen dramatical improvements. Obviously, we release everything at Novu, and we work with it, we test it, we kind of before it creates, the finalized Docker image. So it was really an incredible effort, and I think the results are also quite incredible there. Another part is incorporation of much more on the kind of very high throughput endpoints for the actual Redis instance we have and for caching, which was previously used inside Novu. It's optional if you're on the self-hosted version. We highly recommend you to enable it for more to support more throughput and kind of basically as a general rule of thumb. I think it's a good practice to kind of release some of the load on the main database instance in some cases. And previously, we were running, and Novu could only work with a single instance Redis, which basically means you have a single node, and it works for a specific amount of time. But when you start to scale and you want to scale horizontally, basically your Redis instance, this is where Redis sharding and replication comes into place. And basically, Novu right now supports also running behind a Redis cluster behind the scenes and not only on a single node member, which was previously it. And we also utilize caching much more in the more frequent code paths. So I think we have also George here was leading a lot this project forward, and some of the things, like we say, naming things and caching validation and off by 2 errors, like are the two most important biggest problems in programming. And yeah, I think again, really huge work there, and kudos and thank you so much, George, for taking the lead there. So this is regarding the caching. Another big aspect of it was indexing, which we kind of took quite a really fun, I must say, process and collaboration with the folks from MongoDB, which are amazing partners for us at Novu, to kind of help us calibrate and really fine tune some of the indexes strategies we're utilizing to make them more efficient, better tailored to our needs and query patterns. So a lot of work in there. You can kind of also look on the doc section of the release, kind of the link of where you can find all the new indexes in case you already run Novu in your system and you want to create on your own end. This is another quite big part, and a lot of work around the worker engine to make and improve throughput and help kind of with the growing demand and scale of the system. So this is regarding scalability, and I know it's a lot of things kind of behind the scenes, and we keep pushing work also in the next version in 0.15. Optimizing the worker even furthermore. So we'll keep working on this phase and kind of making sure that we are coming to the most efficient in terms of performance and throughput as we can, and kind of also hopefully it will make also the system for you even faster and more responsive at that time. And the next part of it, and maybe Emil, you can share my screen as well, so something I can maybe show. Let me know when you share it because
it's shared.
Okay, perfect. So one of the things, and we've heard you quite a lot about the workflow editor, that it's kind of you need to make a lot of steps until you actually want to do whatever you want to do. And the first one was previously when you're visiting, let's say, the notification screen, you would click on a notification, you get into intermediate state, and then you kind of start to change and modify things from there, which is kind of extra step you usually don't need or want anymore. So we've done a lot of work to actually consolidate a lot of the interface on the workflow editor to make it a bit more compact, and also remove the previous kind of big editing screen before you can actually visit the editing canvas, which I think in most cases it's really the core of what you're trying to do. And usually how it works is basically you can uh, change the name directly from here, obviously, but you also get the previous setting screen available for you here. So all the previous settings is just in a different location. So you can find them by the this beautiful area here, and you can find all the things related to the user preference and the new providers panel we are seeing here, and some of the general things there. Another thing we've changed is the get snippet path. So now when you are doing the get snippet, you can also run the test workflow triggers directly from here. So it's a more compact kind of interface. So you can actually access all the trigger information and do an actual test from the UI right from here. And you can also get the snippets, and soon I hope it will be already available in the next version, but we have so much work done by, I think also Emil, you also was involved in Prosper, and a lot of folks from the community with Pawan, helping with more SDKs availability for Novu. And I think, remind me if I'm wrong, I think we're at like 6 or 5 finalized SDKs already, right?
We have 6, but also almost 2 more are almost baked.
Amazing. So soon we will be kind of also putting this amazing SDKs as part of the actual interface. So you can also see them here and part of our documentation as well. So stay tuned for this as well. And then the actual editing phases, so you can still find, the previous editing with a bit maybe different layout of the actual nodes, either it's email or any of the other screens we are having. So you can still access them with a bit different layout and style. And this is a lot of preparation work for some of the extra functionalities we will be working on next cycle and the cycle after that. And we can maybe touch on some of the kind of things in progress for us a bit a bit later today. So this is the new workflow editor. This is really was a canvas for us to kind of do some initial steps towards making some of the more complex functionalities down the road and kind of clarifying and doing a bit of overhaul over how we approach this. It's definitely not the last time we will going to be touch this workflow editor in order to make it better. And again, as always, we're trying to be kind of iterative, getting feedback, working on it, iterating, and kind of working in that direction. So this is the new redesigned workflow editor with some of the tweaks that I've just shown you here. So this is the workflow editor. And again, as I mentioned, we've done a lot of focus from the team around performance in this cycle, but we obviously kind of the same goes as with the workflow editor, which David was pushing the lead on and working quite a lot here to make this happen during this cycle, along with the other performance work we had with the entire team. And the other customer-facing feature that I think is really cool is the actual headless library, which wasn't documented and was partially used by us previously, but now we also published it outside, and also looking forward to hear your feedback. How are you using it, and maybe find other ways and improvements we can make on the API of it. But basically, you can now install the headless library, which is just a JavaScript library that you can create your own custom notification center UIs in a framework agnostic way. Basically, you can utilize React, Angular, Vue, PHP, whatever, jQuery, and create a fully functioning notification center where we basically take and abstract away everything that is related regarding the socket management and fetching notification, getting that sync count, and kind of making all the Novu API accessible from this headless library, which you can install and use with your own framework. It's not tied to React or some particular framework we are having. So the team is working really hard and create a lot, code examples and project examples that you can actually see the different functionalities we have there. So stay tuned, and I think we already started to roll out some of those articles, and soon we will be doing much more work in this area of the headless notification center, which I think is really, really cool.
Yes, I'm personally working on a short video for explaining and kind of go over the headless notification center, probably with vanilla JavaScript along with Vue and maybe React, just to see how it would roll and make it, as a really dev byte kind of size thing.
Yeah.
We have a request here from Joseph Joy. He said that keen to see some demo on email digest configurations where we can keep static sections in the email and also dynamic content based on each digest message.
So it's a good question, and basically right now what we are doing is, I'm not sure if it will be available as part of the next version, but basically creating this, template registry with some examples of different configurations of Novu and how you can utilize with some code snippets as well. I think the main really goal around it is that at the moment, what we are suggesting is using the actual HTML editor for those particular use cases where you need a bit more complex digest information and kind of layout of notification. And with the custom HTML, you would basically use handlebars to expose. And we have some various keys accessible as part of the template generation that can tell you, okay, is this step is digested, if what events we have, so you can iterate them and loop on them. And the main takeaway is, again, working with the custom HTML functionality versus the visual code editor for email. I hope this will be changed soon. We had some really nice ideas from the community and some internal plans to incorporate more of a feature-rich WYSIWYG, like what you see is what you get email editor, basically, where you can drop blocks and do some much more complex things that you can do in our current visual editor, which is was an MVP and a really initial version to kind of see where the needs are, people using more custom HTML or there is a need and want for the more of a WYSIWYG kind of solution for those. So I believe that we will be rolling out and kind of focusing on this area in the future releases. And maybe we can do, and I think it's a great idea for Emil or the team to try and compile maybe a guide of how you can do an example for a particular email scenario with how you can style. I don't think it's a very good place for it right now, but I would love to assist Joseph, and hopefully we'll be able to provide a bit more examples of workflows specifically with this particular use case in the next few weeks from our end.
Yeah.
And for now, you can obviously find and you can chat on Discord, and we can either with Pawan or somebody from the team to kind of help you and create some assets for it.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any other changes that you wanted to go through?
So I think the release notes is available on GitHub with some information, and Prosper has also published a Dev2 article about it with some of the kind of key highlights of what's changed. There are obviously, like in every release, there is a bunch of bug fixes and kind of other things that's part of this release, but we don't have place to kind of go in detail about each one of them because there's really quite a lot. And I think also in this release, we had almost 30 collaborators, including our team members, but I think most of them from the community. And I think we also had I think around 15 or 14 new contributors in this release as well. So is really like with every release, there is a really big list of changes, and you can also find the full list available on the release notes themselves.
As a side note, I just want to also add and announce that yesterday started our first Novu hackathon, which called Connect Novu. I think it's a really good, great opportunity for you to join this sort of competition, create an interesting project, or at least even just to see and follow along to see different use cases, demo apps, people submitting things kind of all the time. But right now, it's also be involved with some prizes and rewards. So really exciting. Um, all right. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them right now in the comments. Or, of course, if it's something that's not really entirely convenient for you now, you can go to our Discord server, to the support channel, or any other appropriate channel, and just ask your questions there. Me and Dima and all the rest of the team are always available there. As of course, the feedback collection is a really huge chunk of what we on a consistent basis trying to do and trying to digest as much as we can. Dima, would you like also? I'm not sure if it's really in the scope of the office hours, but can you maybe in pinpoints or kind of tease us a bit about what is going to come in the 0.15, or I mean something that is in plan right now?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the biggest things, and it's been anticipated for quite a lot, is around schedule digest, and basically how we are able to send digest messages that are part of a particular schedule, for example, once a week, once a day, twice a week, or once a month. And until today, basically how the digest works is that you send an event and then we wait for a fixed or a ranged amount of time, for example, okay, 1 hour from now, and then we send the actual message with the delay of 5 hours. But in some cases, you would love the user to receive a digest, for example, each day at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. or Sunday
Right.
morning once a week, or Friday in the end of the week, and etc. And in those areas, we've seen actually really innovative folks and customers who actually did a more of a dynamic digest time. So they would actually calculate it and kind of create a very elaborate systems to kind of try and make those use cases with Novo. But basically, right now, what we're doing is we are introducing a very first class citizen support for time digest at Novo. So what you can actually do with this is being able to set the schedule, for example, once a week or whatever. Down the line, we will also provide end subscribers and basically your users to configure this on the user preference side of things, how they want to receive those notifications. And if particular events come into Novo, Novo will basically set them and send them batched once the particular digest time has arrived. For example, once a week, all the events that happen during the week will be delivered to the user in a single email. And it's going to be, for example, in the specified hour going on. So this is one of the kind of biggest things we are working on. A lot of the very connected things that will be coming also. Yeah, right?
My question is if it's limited only to the email notification, or it's something that could
No,
also.
it could be used for any channels we have today, push, in-app, whatever, and it can be combined with other endpoints. For example, you can send an in-app and then you can send the in-app immediately, and then you can do a weekly digest, for example, and then send an
Mhm.
email and a push. And you can really combine, however you're doing it, not channel specific, but as a more of a generic way to doing scheduled notifications.
Got
Um,
it.
Another thing that is might not be in the next cycle, but this is something we are planning, is beginning to kind of make the schedule digest more functional, in the sense that, okay, let's say you wanted you want your users to get 9 emails once a week at 9 a.m. or every day at 9 a.m. But you have users from Australia and Europe and the US, which meaning that
Time
their
zone
9 a.m.
sensitivity. Yeah.
is not your 9 a.m., right? And in this sense, you are actually need to be able to understand, okay, this user time zone is X. Okay, he will actually get it on his time zone, on
Right.
his end. So this is another cool thing that we are kind of ideating right now and trying to figure out how it all fits together. It won't be part of the upcoming release, but we have some dependencies. So basically, some of the dependencies are on the initial scheduling of the digest mechanism and kind of getting out the initial version of it and then iterating some more functionality on it. Um,
Does it mean
Another
that
really
it
cool.
also kind of would require another, value for each subscriber, like a location or time zone value?
Yes, so basically for it to work, we obviously we need to understand what is the time zone of the user. But
Right.
we have a couple of mechanisms to tackle with it. The first one, you can specify a default time zone. Let's say most of your customers are in Germany, so you can use this as a fallback value. But
Mm-hmm.
in some of the cases, for example, when using the Novo Notification Center, we can actually infer and kind of create suggestions for time zone for particular subscribers from the notification center component. So we can actually understand, okay, this user coming from a particular browser, and we can actually infer what his suggested time zone based on the browser API. And then you
Mm,
can obviously use, our API and SDKs to update this if you want.
nice.
And also, hopefully in the future, also allowing the users to configure this, because maybe the user is traveling and he wants to update it by himself. And because like there is a plethora of ways you can configure this, but because we have some primitives and you might be not using our notification center component, right? And you might have your own
Mm-hmm.
implementation. So we what we try to provide is kind of different ways and components you can access this, and depending on your use case and how deep you're using Novo, maybe you're using us only for the digest and email, for example,
Yeah.
to actually kind of go ahead and implement this like that. So I think it's really opens the door for a lot of cool ideas and things you can actually do. And it's been widely requested from our customers and also from folks all around the world, really, because they kind of had to maintain those crons on their own until now. And basically, what we can achieve with this is okay, we can actually do this for you, so you don't have to manage, all of those things.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. Are there any other kind of big things or ideation processes that happening now?
So we are focusing also around onboarding to particular providers as well. This is meaning, channels,
Mm-hmm.
including the previously provided in-app and also use cases around Digest and Slack. I think the Slack use case and the chat apps use case is quite interesting as well, because what we learned is that it's in some cases it's really hard, like to actually start sending notifications over Slack or Microsoft Teams or Discord, because there is really this kind of thing you need to maintain to actually connect with the Slack API, create a webhook server to actually get the response back from Slack, to store the webhook URL on Novu, and there is like this whole stages until you can actually onboard your customers. But it's not that, hey, can we just have an endpoint that you can redirect your end customers to it? We will take care about all the Slack API related stuff on our end, and we can do this for Microsoft Teams, we can do this for Slack, we can do this for Discord. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about any of this. And then we can store whatever access information we need to send those notifications, store them on the actual subscriber, and you don't really have to kind of maintain this code on your end. And you kind of get it out of the box, provider agnostic, and you can utilize it for multiple providers if you have.
So is it supposed to work like some sort of I mean the closest example that I have is Discord, but I also understand a bit how Slack works. So will it be dependent on some sort of a bot that we like in Novo would maintain, or kind of as an endpoint that will be able to be customizable by the end user?
So to send notifications with Discord and Slack and MS Teams, you have multiple ways you can do this. One way is the bot functionality, which is something that we have some plans to tackle in the future, but this is not something we do today and plan to do as of
Got it.
now. We are
Hmm.
speaking about the webhook, basically
The webhook base,
configuration
yeah.
in there.
Got it.
Yes. And this is again mostly focused around the webhook use cases. We will be touching the bot use cases as well, but for now, we just want to make sure that webhook use cases are helpful for a plethora of different B2B and a lot of our customers that use us with
Hmm.
Slack. It works for them. We are aware that there is a lot of other use cases that you must have a bot to actually facilitate, and I believe we'll get to it as well. But kind of we just with some of the resources, limited resources we are having, so trying to do our best with going,
With what
in
we have,
different directions
yeah,
also.
sure.
Exactly.
I don't see that anyone is asking questions in the chat, so I still kind of going to provide this opportunity for anyone who is still who's watching and would like us to address something or to answer any particular question. But Dima, like as a like probably as a closing note or as something that I would like us to wrap up with is in the recent kind of 2 weeks or even 1 week. Could you share a really interesting question regarding Novu that you needed to tackle or you needed to face kind of really in the recent time?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting use cases, and we released this few cycles back, and this is the inbound reply email. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually use um, get a webhook message from Novu whenever your user replies an email you sent to him using Novu. Which is a really cool use case. It's if you're familiar with GitHub, and when you get an email from GitHub issue, you can actually reply to this email, and your email content will be visible as a comment inside the actual issue.
Yes.
Or for
Yeah.
Intercom, if you got an email from Intercom and you reply to this email, the actual person on the other hand that you are chatting with on Intercom basically will get your email inside Intercom. And a lot of those use cases are really interesting. And for us as Novo, as kind of the centralized place, it's the perfect way for us to do this because we can
Right.
make it, uh, for example, SendGrid have something, like this and their own API, but with Novo is really provider agnostic. So you can switch providers, you can work with both providers. We don't really care. Um, and providing this functionality. So I had a very interesting, kind of conversations with a few use cases. Unfortunately, I can't, kind of disclose the name of the customers, but a lot around also the support, the technical support and support areas that are using Novo, which I was like, oh, what, that's a cool use case, and I hope we'll be creating much more content around this feature because I think you can do really cool stuff with this. And this got me thinking, like, okay, so recently, Google, they announced, I'm not sure if it's their kind of, but they're pushing it quite hard. The whole AMP for email stuff, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically more of the interactive emails you can do. For example, when you get an email from Google Docs, you can actually click on stuff inside the email. It's like interactive and things like this. And it's
Yeah.
got me thinking, okay, like what are the primitives we can make this, notifications not only like one directional, but also being able to
Like
engage
so
with them
the
just as you
feedback, yeah.
explained.
So the feedback will come, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like not a one directional kind of, hey, here's a message for you, but it's more of a conversation when people can actually interact with the notification inside their email, like replying to this email, for example, or doing some other stuff with it. So I think
Right.
it kind of got me thinking about a lot of really interesting implementations and directions we are very well positioned to kind of help with in the future. And yeah, I think that was some really insightful
Good. Good. That sounds
moment in
really
that end.
interesting. I mean, I personally can think already about few ways to make my email inbox like and the conversation that many different companies and tools and newsletters are sending me, that if they will just make it a bit more engaging and provide me with some a bit more abilities to not just to read it as a normal, like a boring email, I even say that, but to really engage with it could be a really changing thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So I guess this will be our cue to wrap this session up. I just want to remind you all again, as we did in the I think in the beginning of this stream, that we're currently running the Novu hackathon, the Connect Novu. So feel free to join and to see what people are doing and creating, which I think is really great. Also, we are always available, and you can reach us through our Discord server, where is our primarily uh, the primary place for all the support and all the community conversation that we are having. But of course, you can do so through GitHub as well. We are obviously active there. And if you would like to submit any questions or requests or anything to our team in terms of maybe educational materials or content that you would like us to start to create and focus on, you can do so through our Twitter page. Just go there, mention us, and type what you would like us to focus on or what you would like us to present, just as Joseph did here in the comments. And we will be sure to at least address that and at least put it in our kind of backlog or to even act upon it. So know that you can reach us through many different channels. Just do so. We're always happy to have a chat with you, to get to know you better, to get to know your use case better, and make you successful with whatever you do.
Yeah,
So
and another kind of call for papers is that we are working right now on the also on the schedule digest and on the time zone kind of, and doing some ideation part of it. If you have this use case in your company, or this is a problem you're trying to solve and you want to share a bit more the problems and difficulties you've experienced with it, I please ask me, Dima, on Discord. I will also post kind of a request, about feedback and some ideas and problems you might face with some of the things we're trying to solve, and there's also kind of learning collectively from the problems and some of our upcoming features from your use
yeah,
cases. So hopefully we can solve them as well. So if somebody here has some opinion or need in any of the either scheduled digest or the time zone configuration and etc., please reach out to me on Discord, or just write it up, and I'll grab you. The coffee is on me, and would love to kind of hear your thoughts about it.
all right. Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.